Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whichever it is for you in your particular time zone, your particular slice of the world. Welcome to the No Offense Podcast with your hosts, Thomas Grice and
Rogelio Tapete. How's everyone doing tonight? Good? That's good. Good.
It's good. It's good.
It's
Everything's good. We've got a good episode for you today. We've got some stuff to cover from recent and not so recent happenings, and we've got a topic as usual. A couple topics actually. This time is going to be a little bit of a mixed bag, but I've got a disclaimer right off the bat, and this is based off of a lot of the sort of behavior I've seen recently on the Facebooks, on the social medias, as usual. That's the source of a lot of our material here. So here's my disclaimer. Do at least 1.5 seconds of fact-checking before you make
At the
claims.
minimum. Bare minimum.
If you find out something controversial, if you find out that Mike Pence has eaten the hearts of children for pleasure before, at least just Google it and see if a Snopes article comes up. And if you don't know what Snopes is, which I'm aware some people might not, Snopes is a website in which people investigate conspiracy theories or urban legends or rumors, and investigates and sort of ascertains the truthiness of these claims.
Wait, Tom, quick question. Just just for the sake of my own knowledge, Snopes, is it like I've seen a couple of debates about Snopes and fact checking websites.
Yep.
Do you think that they're run by liberal people? Or what I'm saying, is it like Wikipedia where it's like users put in the fact checking, or is it like run by the Snopes server?
Yeah, no, there's definitely, I think it's similar to Wikipedia in that I don't know that anybody can just I think there's sort of a selected handful
What's that
editors.
word called when anyone can go in and edit?
Sort of like community driven.
Open source editing?
Yeah. You could think of it as open source editing. Open source is whenever something, like open source code is whenever code is open source and anybody can take code for a program and alter it and release it under a different name or something like that. So essentially Wikipedia is like open source information, and that anybody can go in and edit things, but there's peer review and things like that. And Snopes, I think, operates under a similar premise in that it is like different people doing reviews of facts or claims and determining how factual they are. And I'm, by the way, not saying that just because Snopes says something is true or false, that it is true or false. But what I'm saying is that oftentimes in my experience, Snopes
seem pretty unbiased.
They seem like relatively unbiased, or they'll at least point out, like, I have a great example. A good conservative high school friend of ours posted recently on the Facebooks about rigged election ballots, early voting ballots in Texas. And it was a picture where the ballot had Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine twice and no Republican option at all. And well, first of all, this is a horrible way to rig an election because it's like super obvious, and that's just not a very sneaky way to rig an election. It's a great way to get conservative media super hyped about Hillary Clinton is rigging the election. But really what it turned out to be, once you Google it and find the Snopes article about it, it turned out to be a hoax that some Twitterer had photoshopped. He literally just copied the Hillary Clinton Tim Kaine option and pasted it over the Republican option, essentially. Is what he did. So it was like a very obvious hoax. But our friend, who we'll call Brian, that's not his name, but we'll call him Brian, posted it as if it was
like
true.
Brian Brash?
Yeah.
Okay.
Brammer and Brash. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He posted that, and 1 second of Googling would have disproved it. And then what happens when somebody called him out on it, not me, but somebody else, is he said, yeah, well, there's all these other examples. And I can't help but think, if you didn't even check this one, like, what are the, like, I'm not going to go fact check every single link that you copy paste to me. Like,
right.
you should do a little bit of searching for yourself. And so that is today's disclaimer, is that you need to do at least 1 second, at least 1 millisecond of fact checking before you go spewing your conspiracy theories all over social media.
Right. And who has the burden of proof when something is wrong? Like if I was to say God is not real, who has the burden of proof to prove that God is not real? Is it me or is it you?
Traditionally, the person who makes the claim
has the burden of proof.
Has
right?
the burden of proof, but it really depends on the setting, right? Because like
Right.
if you just run around saying that something that is very yeah, I mean, I guess it really depends on the context, but in general, if you're the person saying something that is controversial or that runs counter to common knowledge, like gravity isn't real or something, like, yeah, you need to. Yeah,
Okay.
it's your job.
Absolutely.
It's your job.
Yeah,
to prove
it's the obligation to prove one's assertion. So yeah,
Yep.
So it is exactly. So if you're gonna post something controversial, you have to have the facts backing up, or at least a source that's not as biased as your narrative is. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I would
Or something of
add
that nature.
a further sort of asterisk to this, which is nobody can be expected to be an expert about every single thing, especially when it's kind of shrouded behind like lots, like maybe it's a very complex topic and nobody really knows, like, okay, fine, like you're not going to go and get your PhD in it and know. But when it's something very simple, like, oh, were they jinxing or were they rigging the election in this city, like, and you can just Google and find out that it's not true, like that's worth doing so that you can not look stupid.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So
I agree with
we
that
got
100%.
some recent happenings, Rogelio. Mine's first here on the bullet point, the bullet listing, and that is Donna Brazil. Brazil? I actually don't know how to say her name.
Donna Brazil.
I think I heard it pronounced Brazil. Brazil.
She's a Democratic National Convention head, like the queen of the DNC.
She's the chairwoman, excuse me, of the DNC, and she was actually found to be the person that leaked. What was it? She leaked a
WikiLeaks.
question. She leaked a question to Hillary Clinton at one of the town halls, essentially, and she got caught in one of these WikiLeaks emails. And there is a YouTube video of her. I think she's on, I don't know, CNN. I don't think it's Fox News. Excuse me, where she basically does the most acrobatics that I have seen anyone do in an interview in a while to avoid admitting that she did this. I mean, it's in the emails. She doesn't say straight up that the email isn't true, which is what I would do if some emails came out and I knew that they were false. Like, I'd just be like, yeah, that's not true. I didn't do that. Instead, what she does is this crazy, like, acrobatics where she's like, I will not verify this falsified information. Like, what she's trying to say...
She tries to lawyer it?
Yeah, she tried to lawyer it. Like, what she's trying to say is that since this information was gained through false, I guess, means or, like, illegal means, that it is somehow can't be used against her. But, sorry, this isn't... I don't know what you think it is.
You're not in a court of law.
You're not in a court of law. This is the court of public opinion. This is the court of public discussion. You know, and you are like, if you did this, you'd look a lot better, in my opinion, if you just owned up to it. I mean, it's not like she got caught like murdering a baby. Like, she got caught leaking a question. But I guess maybe there are further implications that make it impossible for her to own up to that. And I guess you don't get to the top of the DNC without being a little bit, maybe a lot shady. So
shady and manipulative. And that's an interesting point that you just made about you don't get to the top of the DNC. Lately, you've been hearing a lot about the DNC and their, I guess the best way to put it would be their misactions. Their things that just seem a lot shadier than they are. And it's just like this the idea that politicians by nature are corrupt. You know, it's just all it's doing is reinforcing that idea. And my question is, why haven't we heard a lot about the RNC, you know? And that is something that's an interesting question to pose when in regards to, like, the Podesta emails and WikiLeaks is why is there only stuff coming out about the DNC? Why is there nothing coming out about the RNC? You know, because I'm sure if you looked into the RNC, it'd be similar things. You know, I remember when I was 15 years old, I read this book called Kid President. I don't know if you ever read it. And in that book, it's about a kid running for president. And as a politician, he had his campaign manager told him how to talk, how to walk, what to do, who to talk to, how to talk to. And even in Obama's book, it's still the same things. Like they have to talk to people, they have to know certain people, they have to get ahead with certain people. And I think that if you were to look into the RNC the same way, with the same scrutiny as a DNC, you would see a lot of similar things. Yet I don't think the American people want to see their politicians in that light, even though if they see them under that standard already. You know, they already think that politicians are corrupt. They just don't want to see or don't want to admit that the DNC may be as corrupt as politicians.
It's just the way that we've built it is that we have these two huge monolithic political institutions, which are the Republicans and the Democrats, basically, and to rise the ranks of those organizations it's just like, actually you can just compare it to any other sort of corporation as well. Think about the things that corporations like Walmart and Microsoft and etc., like any corporation has to do, like things that are cutthroat to survive in the market. Well, we essentially have this same thing going on, except politically, and so we're all very aghast when we find out how the sausage is made. But I mean, it's just, we've kind of dug our own hole. This doesn't excuse any of the awful things that the DNC has done, but I just don't think that people necessarily should be so shocked. I think people should just vote out these people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just in the same way as a corporation you don't like, it's, I guess, I don't want to say the market fixes everything, because a lot of the time the market doesn't fix everything.
Yeah.
But in certain scenarios where you have direct public opinion affects how a person goes back into office, I think the interesting thing would be, okay, right now our choices are Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump.
Right.
You know, I think you and I have already covered this. It's quite clear who the best choice based on potential negative actions during the course of his or her presidency would be. So that'd be Hillary Clinton.
Right.
But that means don't give her a second term, obviously. You know, vote her out of office.
I think what we're doing is I think the unfortunate thing is that we're kind of in a position. It's not like we have 10 brands of peanut butter and we get to like pick the best one. It's more like we have like AT&T and Comcast, and we're going with Comcast because AT&T is just evil Satan corporation. Comcast is just really evil, but they're not quite Lucifer. So we're going to pick them for now. But what we need to do is go do the hard work to go get some like some independent telecom providers set up in our area. Not to go too far with this metaphor, but
apply for Google Fiber and stuff.
But the reason that that's so hard to do is because think about how hard it is, for example, to get Google Fiber to an area. They have to add all of this infrastructure. So for the Green Party or the Libertarian Party to win, which I do think having them more in the conversation is healthy, for them, think about how much infrastructure they lack. They do lack the media connections, so they are not in the conversation in the same way, and they don't have the opportunities to exploit the media in the same way that the DNC has been shown to do. And this was just a really embarrassing moment from Donna Brazile. It's not often that you get to see such an obvious evasion of the truth, but that, just Google Donna Brazile interview.
Or I think that you mentioned she was cucked, like she was a cuckold, is because Hillary Clinton kind of fucked her over too, and was like, oh, she was in full meltdown, talking about Donna, which is like her homegirl, so I think that's why. Is that part of the reason why you mentioned she was a cuckold or something like that?
I said Donna Brazile got cucked because she just got put in a position where it kind of seemed like, I don't know what the career of somebody who's a DNC leader looks like, but for me, I don't know that there's any money that would make it worth it for me to look that pathetic on national television. Like, she just looked, in my opinion, whenever your profession is you just evading the little greasy things that you're doing, like that's what you do for a living, like just I'll go work at McDonald's, like it was just really gross to watch, and she should be ashamed of herself.
Exactly. I agree with you 100%. The Wall Street Journal article that you have here on the recent happenings, that's pretty interesting as well. And I think that covers a little bit about it's in the same I guess descriptor of like a cultural appropriation where the liberal police is coming through and kind of ruining all the good shit that we have, you know, like, and I think it's covering fiction writing, you know, like a white guy can't write through the perspective of a black girl. Or
yeah, so this is a fictional author, and I forget the details, but basically she did a talk, I think in Australia, but I'm not sure, about how if we take this sort of politically correct, anti-cultural appropriation, isolationist, cultural isolationist attitudes to their logical conclusion, essentially what we're saying is that people are not allowed to pretend. So if I want to write a book and maybe I want to write one of my characters from a perspective that I don't share, then in some sense, if we take the logic people have been using lately, that is appropriating or possibly misrepresenting somebody else's story. And one of the examples that they bring up in the article that's writing about this is the I forgot which movie it was.
Johnny's got his gun.
Johnny's Got His Gun, which was written from the perspective of a paraplegic. And so, like, if I'm not a paraplegic, can I not write that? Can I not? All these legendary works of fiction throughout the course of humanity, are they all just retroactively problematic? Like that. This to me is a really good example of how pathetic the cultural appropriation argument really can be. And we'll talk about it more, but I do think there are legit things to be upset about in terms of cultural appropriation, quote unquote, in very extreme cases. Like, I think that, like, putting on like blackface and calling for just doing like really stupid things, like those things should be legitimately like named and shamed. But using the power of our minds to appreciate other cultures, to express art from the perspectives that maybe we don't share, I just can't get behind that being a bad thing.
Yeah, and in this article that we'll post in the summary about this article so people can go check it out with our YouTube channel. But it also talks about the Mark Jacobs show and the use of dreadlocks and peep toe platforms, which is apparently appropriating even Japanese culture, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that you and I have discussed this before, and we've even had conversations about this on social media. But I don't know, man. I don't know if I can, you know, dreadlocks, like, how do you, as a culture, take ownership for things, you know? Like, I really don't understand how that works, you know, because I grew up with white people having dreadlocks, you know, wouldn't it be my culture now that I know that people with white people have dreadlocks? Like, people in our high school had dreadlocks, you know. So and not only that, but I also think about the legislation behind a lot of these things. Is it just going to be like a social, like, is it going to be in the social realm, like they're going to get shunned and named and shamed for wearing dreadlocks? Yeah. Or is it going to be legislation behind it? Because then that's the case, I'll never ever get behind any type of law.
Well, that's the scariest part, and I think that's why it's really important to speak out about this stuff now, is because I get it. I get some things making you uncomfortable because maybe you're very, very cognizant of the awful things that maybe white people have done, and whenever you see one with dreadlocks, maybe you sharply contrast the horrors of slavery against a white person with dreadlocks, and maybe that causes you some visceral feeling of disgust, maybe. And if that's the case, then first of all, like, that's awful, and I'm sorry that you feel that. But second of all, I don't think that anything like that should be legislated or turned into a rule, right? And we're not there yet, and maybe we're not going there, but I think it's important to speak out now so that we don't go in that direction, because there are countries, even in Western states, that have more draconian free speech and free expression laws, particularly in Europe, and where you can be, you know, maybe get in trouble for flying certain types of flags and stuff. And I don't want to be like that type of society, that type of country. I don't want to be in that type of world, I should say.
No, I don't want to be in that type of world at all either. Just because, you know, I think that with the internet, it's a double-edged sword. It's you can access so much information on it but at the same time you can find your little niche, and that's your echo chamber. And then today I was watching, I don't know if you ever seen cringe comps, like compilations of cringe stuff.
Yeah.
It's some of my favorite stuff on the internet. And today on YouTube I was watching Tumblr cringe, and it was a girl yelling at the camera talking about how rude it is for the patriarchy to like not open the door or something of that nature, and just other like a bunch of like kids who are like 15 or 16 years old going on this website, and essentially all of them getting angry about things that they really have no effect over. And by acting that way, they're not, I mean, hopefully that's not the people who are making our laws in the future, because they don't understand the implications of saying the things that they're saying, you know, like cisgender people are scum and things like that, you know, of that nature.
Right.
And I understand that that's their echo chamber, that's all their homies are doing that. But at the same time, someone has to tell these kids, like, hey, this behavior is not, I mean, this behavior is whatever you want to make it, fine, but you can't legislate on this. And if you want to go into like the professional setting, you will never, ever, ever get away with any of this shit. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. I think. Okay. So there's a good example on this topic. You're totally right about like you'll never be able to survive in a professional setting. But there's another thing I wanted to bring up, which is so when people decide that certain things are offensive, it's funny because they often don't take into account the opinions of the oppressed, so-called oppressed class and what some of them might think. Like, for example, I was recently on a Facebook group called Jill Stein Dank Meme Stash, which the memes weren't even that good, to be honest. The memes
were subpar.
They were only moderately dank at best. Basically, one of the admins or moderators had posted something about triggered memes and how they are disrespectful to and even harmful to mentally ill people, because they might, I believe what she said was, they might cause them to, she said it would cause them to not ask for help or mention that they were triggered from their therapists, I guess, because they are like ashamed of being triggered because the memes are making fun of triggeredness, I guess. But first of all, that's an empirical claim, and I doubt very highly that comes from any sort of actual data. If anything, it comes from probably an anecdote of some sort. But regardless, there were mentally ill people who mentioned in the comment thread afterwards that they had, been diagnosed with bipolar or depression or what have you, and that they didn't mind people using that meme, essentially is what they said. They didn't really see the problem, or they mentioned that it was just humor, comedy. And basically those people just get ignored. It's the same thing whenever a black person says maybe like white people aren't all, oppressing us. Maybe like systematic racism is not, the opinion can vary. I'm not even saying I advocate these opinions. I'm just saying like when a minority expresses these opinions, they are generally swept under the rug by either other minorities or white people who are trying to act like they have some higher ground of morality or virtue.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Would an appropriate word be like white guilt? Would you say would that be an appropriate qualifier or no?
I mean, I'm trying to avoid tying it to any one race because it occurs. It can occur. White guilt is the classic example because that has been, I think, prevalent in the past. But now I think we see it happening with basically anything that can be considered offensive or oppressive. If you're a person who is trying to voice that you think that thing, meme, is offensive or oppressive, if somebody else who maybe is part of that offended class or that oppressed class mentions that maybe they don't share that same view, maybe they think it's good that people are allowed to joke in the way that they want to, then those people just get ignored. And I don't know exactly what that's called. I don't know what that is. I just know that I think that's a really good example of the hypocrisy. And it just shows like you don't know like what is better for other people. Like you don't know that. Some people, even if they have post-traumatic stress disorder, probably appreciate the fact that there is humor and comedy in the world that is sometimes offensive.
Exactly. And I've seen a similar like a Tumblr post about triggered and stuff like that, and it was somebody essentially scolding the community about saying that something triggered them on the subway or something triggered them here, there, or the other. And this person was like, I work in a psych ward, you know, and there's people that come in there with such bad anxiety that they like pop Xanax bars every time they see something that reminds them of their sexual assault and their rape, things like that. Those are actual real triggers, not, oh, I saw a foot long and I had some sort of sexual thought and it triggered me, you know. That I think it's important to realize the rhetoric that you're using and the weight that it actually holds to people that are just actually affecting. And if it's actually affecting you, then great. Let's see how we can help you out. But if you're just using it to like gain sympathy points or validation, I think that's really toxic and that's not healthy for you as a human being, you know. And so you should confront those ideas and those thoughts in your own head, you know.
Right.
Like so.
Right. I think we can move on a little bit. We got a bunch of bullet points here, but I think this is a topic that's going to come up a lot. So the next thing was this world population and extreme poverty bit. Did you add this or was that me?
I think that was you, but I think that I also added something to the page that's relevant to that as well.
Oh, okay. So what we have here is just a graph showing that the overall fraction of people living in extreme poverty over the past 200 years or so has gone down immensely. And we have, first of all, the population has grown a lot, but even the absolute number of people, not just the fraction, but the absolute number of people living in extreme poverty has gone down over the years. And I think it's just important to realize that, you know, you think that like everything is doom and gloom in the world. Well, actually a lot of things have gotten better. So just kind of keep that in mind.
Right. And then it's the U.S. murder rate per 100,000 people. And then the graphic there is pretty much the same thing. It's murder rates are really, really high. And at a certain point, there's this idea that crime is out of control. But in reality, crime is going down. But at the same time, there's more of an awareness of murders and stuff like that because of things like the internet and just advances in communication. So they're more aware of crime, yet crime is going down. And like crime is out of control and there's a war on crime. But in reality, or maybe the war on crime is what helped this crime go down. But regardless, it's still like there's so much crime when in reality it's better than it's ever been. You know, it's better than the good old days.
Yeah, I guess it just helps to be, you know, statistically oriented. You don't have to be a statistician, but you know, if you know that 20% of the population was in extreme poverty 100 years ago and 10% of them are now, then you know that's just something to know. That's just a number I made up, but there are reasons to believe that we are living in a better world now than we were 10, 20, 50, 100 years ago. So the information that we're getting has gone way up. So we're hyper aware and hyper able to see the pain of the world. But we have made strides, I think. Which
is a good thing, though, because at the same time, we're seeing the pain of the world, and then we're able to use whatever avenues or resources that we're afforded to go and help out the pain of the world, which I see as a good thing. But a lot of people, and I guess I'm going to use Alex Jones as an example. I mean, a lot of the shit that he says is really, really far-fetched, but he does have a base fear, and that's about globalism, and that's a fear that a lot of people in the right share, is this idea that there's going to be more of a global economy. And later on, when we talk about conspiracy theories, we can talk about the fears of globalism. But for me, it's a good thing. For a lot of people, it's not a good thing. But, I mean, with this data, with just purely statistics, we can see that in regards to the whole world, it's really, really good that there's like a more globalized brain.
Okay, well then let's just go ahead and move on to the main topic of today, which is conspiracy theories. And so we're not going in depth on any one conspiracy theory in particular, but just to kind of talk about conspiracy theories in a modern context, and what they kind of mini conspiracy theories that exist today and how they've existed in the past a little bit. So you just brought up a good point with the globalist thing.
Obama and FEMA camps.
Obama and FEMA camps is one. FEMA is a big conspiracy thing. But what I was going to mention in response to the globalism thing was I think of globalism as being sort of like in an ideal sense, just the world coming together sort of under one country, right? And we're obviously very, very far away from this ever happening. But I think that idea in and of itself is not like a horrible idea, right? Ideally, we'd be able to like dissolve borders and not have to worry about. I mean, I don't like dealing with that shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I think that it's a great idea. I think what we should do now, though, is just cover some conspiracy theories that we know.
Right.
And just talk about why that even is a thing, or what you think the foundational thought process goes between believing a conspiracy theory like this. Because I don't think they're crazy. I think that back in the day, like maybe 20 years ago, believing in a conspiracy theory would be like the guy on the corner with like God is near or something like that. That's a conspiracy theory. But nowadays with like 9/11, that's a conspiracy theory that a lot of people believe, and other things of that nature. I think that it's not.
Yeah,
it's
I don't know if I buy into
totally
the 9/11
crazy.
one though. Is that what you're implying? That you think there's some validity?
No, absolutely not. I'm under the. I believe that I don't believe any conspiracy theories. Simply because I'm under the thought process that if you believe one, you'll believe all of them. Where does it stop?
Well,
So
no, I mean, I think there is differing amount of evidence for different conspiracy theories. Like Bigfoot as a conspiracy theory, there's not a lot of evidence for it. JFK's assassination, there's some evidence to suggest that was a conspiracy to kill JFK. But
Bernie Sanders.
But what I was bringing up with the globalist thing, though, what I was trying to point out is that the actual idea of globalism itself is not a bad thing. I don't think, unless you just really want to preserve individual cultures so much that you want there to be borders and the countries as they exist forever. But then you add all these little bells and whistles, like, oh, well, they're going to put a chip in you so that they can track you, and then they're going to track your every action on and offline. They're going to use it to control you. They're going to enslave you. Like, there's all this baggage that gets added. And with the really crazy conspiracy theories where you can just kind of add everything you want to them, I think those are the ones that get really ridiculous. The sort of isolated ones that are like the JFK assassination, like those are the ones that I find to be more plausible, because they are, all you're saying is that, hey, maybe this event had something fishy behind it. Maybe the cause was not like what you thought, rather than this kind of global conspiracy, like these bigger conspiracy theories. Like, I don't think that humanity is really capable of, I don't think that there's like that many like rich people trying to globalize us necessarily. Like, I think they want to make more money, and I think that they want to extend their power, like make markets more free, because then corporations and businesses can grow more. But I don't necessarily think that they're like dying to implant chips in each of us and like mind control us.
Right. And the fear of globalism is exactly what you just covered. I've heard, sometimes I delve deep into conspiracy theory waters. For example, this week.
Tell us of your waters. Your explorations.
Yeah, I wade deep. I put my galoshes on, and I really try to see where this is coming from and where a lot of these ideas are coming from. I don't know. We're both old enough to remember when Obama was getting into office and in his second term, and just the amount of people saying that Obama is going to try to like make everyone Muslim, implement Sharia law.
I actually don't remember that strongly.
You don't remember that?
Not really.
Maybe I do remember it, but I see it more nowadays with like Hillary and like the fact that it's two Democratic presidents running back to back and winning. It's a lot of these muddy waters that I tread through. A lot of these people kind of just like, okay, it didn't happen with Obama, but now wait. So for example, I have this awesome YouTube link. It's an hour and 1 minute and 39 seconds long. It's by a man named Trey Smith, and it says Trump, the coming landslide, ancient prophecy documentary of Donald Trump, 2016. And a lot of these prophecies, a lot of these conspiracies, on a fundamental level, it's usually Christian versus Muslim, And that's where they're like basing all their ideas on, is the idea that it's, even though we don't see it,
So it
it's
goes
not
back
as relevant.
to some ancient conflict.
Yeah, exactly. Some ancient conflict that we're not seeing now, that is carried over all the way to today, that Obama is part of somehow, and so is Hillary Clinton. And this idea that it's like Christian versus Muslim. And so this hour-long documentary, I watched the whole thing because a guy was cracking me up because he was cracking me up.
So this is like, hold on, this is like some type of like independent, like sort of documentary that somebody produced.
Yeah, exactly. So it's this guy who produced it, but it's in the same vein as like
Dinesh D'Souza or something.
No, his name is Trey Smith, and he's like he grabbed a bunch of like prophets. I'm putting that in quotation marks right now. You can't see it, but in quotation marks. And he compiled a bunch of Christian prophets, and he grabbed a guy who was a Hindu who converted to Christianism, who literally saw Donald Trump in some sort of prayer. He was in deep prayer, and he saw Donald Trump come to him in an apparition, and he looked at him and he said, "I'm going to be the next president, and I'm going to save Christianism." And it's an hour and a minute.
Okay, Rogelio, what is Christianism?
Christianism?
You mean Christianity, bro?
Okay.
I let you say that like 3 times. That's my fault. That's all me.
Christianity. Next time, shoot me like a Skype message, like under the table.
I'm just gonna call you out on the podcast, like Christianism, bro.
You know what it is sometimes my brain is trying to like translate Spanish into English, even if I'm not thinking about it, and it just happens. Just bear with me, Tom, please. Anyways, so it's Christianity. And it's this Christian guy, and it's saying that Trump is going to save Christianity. And I see it all over the place. Anytime I'm in any of these two, and I love reading comments, you know that. And anytime I see anything about like Trump or Obama and Hillary Clinton, I'm seeing this. So this guy named Clint, I guess we're going to do our call outs right now, because this is a really
Call him out.
One.
Call him out, Rogelio.
His name is Clint Schildauer, and he's got a picture of Colossus, but really it's General George S. Patton in Colossus form, I guess. And his comment says, "I'm wearing my Trump short and my cross on election day." This guy's got a cross. The Lord, I guess like a huge cross. I don't know. I'm just trying to picture this guy showing up at a polling station with his Trump shirt and his cross. And he says, "The Lord rebuke you, Satan, and Hillary and Obama and Bush." Oh, now he's including Bush. I'm sure 8 years ago Bush would have been like his homeboy, you know. But I wonder why he hates him now, you know.
Right.
And then this guy 212 DNT. He's got a picture of like an alien that's. You can kind of make out like Hillary Clinton in the alien face.
What?
And it says it's a like
a gray alien, like a
gray alien, but you can kind of see the superimposition of Hillary Clinton's face on.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And his is a Bible quote. It's Ezekiel 22:30. This is awesome. He says, "And I sought for a man among them who should build up the wall and stand in the breach before me for the land, that I should not destroy it." So this guy is finding biblical proof that Donald Trump is their man because of some quote, which I'm sure is taken out. Yeah, that mentions a wall, which I'm sure is taken out of context, but it's fine. That mentions a wall, and that's just proof for like liking Donald Trump.
No, you know what? I'm convinced. Donald Trump is going to save Christianity.
Exactly, and I agree as well, you know, because, I mean, I don't know. Let me ask you a question, and this might be controversial to you.
Okay.
But do you think, now, bear with me, Tom. Do you think, bear with me, buddy. Do you think that a lot of these people and their conspiracy theories might be because they're racist or sexist? Do you think that may have anything to do with it? Maybe like
that's something I struggle with because I don't.
Yeah, I struggle with it too.
I don't know that they're racist or sexist. I just know that they're doing the most mental gymnastics to affirm their politician. I don't know, man. Like it's hard. I don't know that it's. I feel like it's grounded in a sort of racism and sexism, but I don't think these people like actively. I think most of them don't actively like hate women or whatever. At least not in the term like not like a deep hatred so much as just maybe just an ignorance. I don't know.
Right.
They're certainly not enlightened fourth wave feminists. I mean,
well, exactly. Yeah. And I think that's the problem with today. And a lot of the times, people, like, if you're like one of these far right people, you can just immediately point to someone at the far left and be like, look at these dudes, look at how they're acting. Don't talk to me about how I'm acting. Look at how they're acting, you know?
Right.
And so that's an interesting point. And like that article by this state.xyz about if you're telling me you are supporting Hillary, I already know 7 things about you. This is not that crazy of a far right idea, but a lot of people that don't like Hillary share these 7 things, man. Like we look through it and we're like, whoa, no, like this is not any none of this is true.
Can you read the 7 things?
Yeah, I'll read them.
So read what is the title of this, and then read the 7 things.
Okay, so the title of this article is if you tell me you are supporting Hillary, I already know 7 things about you.
Okay, so these are 7 things that are for sure true about you if you support Hillary Clinton for president. So get ready, folks.
You don't understand basic economics.
True.
True. You are an insider. That was a hard class, man. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is a pretty hard class actually. If you, that was a hard class for you.
It was hard for me. Yeah.
I think that you like.
But I mean that's it. That's part of the reason why I support Hillary is just because.
Oh right, absolutely, yeah, exactly. And then you are an insider, a statist, or corporatist, a fascist, a socialist, or a communist. Ding, 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 ding.
Ding all the way. I am all of those things somehow. No. I think it's very dangerous to equate. Like, this is something that's going on the right, and there's definitely parallels on the left, but it's dangerous to equate somebody who believes in maybe moderate forms of socialism, maybe like some socialist policies here and there. It's dangerous to equate that with being a fascist. Like, those things are not the same, and shame on you for calling them equivalent.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, okay.
Yeah, I want to expand on that, but I don't have the definition of both off the top of my head, and I'm not as I don't know how to.
I mean, a fascist is basically just. I hope I don't butcher this, but I think it's like somebody who's like a far right nationalist who is sort of willing to use or wants
the government as like.
Yeah, you want to institute like sort of an autocratic government,
religious government. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like government is religion. You know, like it's really, really nationalist.
It's just a very, very high emphasis on nationalism. It actually doesn't. I don't think that fascism itself prescribes very many specific like policies other than just being very, very nationalistic.
Mm-hmm. And socialist is a mixed economy with like some capitalism and some communism in this fact that like they welfare programs and things of that nature, which we already have.
That's actually super interesting because that is what people say. They're like, oh, well, socialism is just moderate, communism or it's just like a mixed economy with some sort of public programs, right?
Mm-hmm.
It depends on which term you're using. But actually, I think in early Marxist thought, I think socialism and communism are pretty close. I think maybe socialism was thought to be the precursor to communism. But this is why I need to read Das Kapital and the Communist Manifesto so that I can refresh this stuff. But
that should be our homework for like the next couple.
That should be our homework. But my point is that somebody who is like a democratic socialist in the vein of Bernie Sanders, for example, I think it's unfair to equivocate that with fascism.
Yeah, or authoritarianism or anything like that. It doesn't necessarily mean that. But anyways, let me cover the number 3. It's the number 3 thing that they already know about you if you support Hillary is that you have trouble seeing the forest for the trees. And that what this person covers essentially, which he or she expands on this point, is that you see the words higher minimum wage, free universal healthcare, free tuition, higher taxes on the rich and big business, and you're seeing all those words, but you don't understand the implications or the ramifications of those things. And I think that, I mean, I'm not agreeing with this person. This is not entirely true.
Can you repeat that one back?
Yeah. So the number 3, it's you have trouble seeing the forest for the trees.
Okay.
And the expansion on that is that you see the words higher minimum wage.
Okay.
Free universal healthcare, free tuition, and higher taxes on the rich and big business, and you don't see the implications or the ramifications behind those words. Yep. So you see the forest, you see the bigger picture, but you don't see the individual trees that are going to have to get cut down.
Yeah.
To get that forest,
okay.
I guess.
I have a comment on this one, which is kind of what we talked about in our last couple of shows, which is like you're just assuming the worst out of your opponent. You're just assuming that your opponent who's pro-free education has never thought about what the costs might be for that, and that's just like a ridiculous assumption, which might be true of many people, but there are also people who are really want to reduce the cost of lower education, of higher education, and are aware that there are probably trade-offs that go along with that.
Exactly. And man, I'm gonna copy and paste this, and we're gonna cover all this stuff in another episode, just because I want to see the forest for the trees better, because I think about this stuff often,
right?
And I'd like to see the forest for the trees. I admit that maybe because I see these things, I don't really ever have an opinion on things until like I've really, really discussed it and like self-deprecated myself and just
yep.
You know what I'm saying? So we're gonna look into that one. Number 4 is, and these next 3 are super interesting, and I think they're the reason why the right and the far right has these crazy conspiracy theories. Because listen to this. Number 4, you are a bigot, you just don't know it yet. a Hillary Clinton supporter. And that's awesome, because earlier you were talking about like how liberals and like these people who are like social justice warriors, like if someone from that race or that social class is like, yo, you know what, it's not a big deal,
right,
they ignore them. So that's an interesting point. But
yeah, I mean, so this is something that's sort of a broken clock is right twice a day type of thing. They're like right, but they don't even know like why they're right, because the whole point of like what I was saying earlier is that like really we're all bigots. Like we have all done things that are bigoted. Like we're just acting on. We've all acted out of ignorance before, or held a belief that was maybe in some way bigoted without even maybe knowing it. So they're correct in that sense, but they're also, if they don't think that anybody who supports Trump has ever been bigoted, then that's hilarious.
Maybe for 7 things I already know, if you support Donald Trump, this one would read, "You are a bigot and you do know it."
Zing.
Exactly. Number 5, you think blacks and Hispanics are inferior and you support mass genocide. Another far right idea, the idea that they're going to put them in FEMA camps and they're just waiting for Hillary to have all the power to put everyone in camps.
Yeah, how do they justify that? Is that what they expand on it with?
Yeah, so the idea is that, well, Hillary is Satan, obviously.
Right.
Like, she's obviously
you don't have to mention that.
Satan.
That's just assumed.
Right. Obama tried as hard as he could, but fortunately the powers of Christ compelled him, and he couldn't do everything he wanted to do in office. But now we got Hillary, and in her 4 years, what she's gonna do is that really she's setting up these badass camps, dude, and she's gonna put in like. Her plan of action is somehow convince Congress, or Satan will come out of the ground and put in all these lower class people like Hispanics. I'm Hispanic, by the way, everybody. Blacks, all these people. Just had to make sure, because I had to like cover my own tracks there. But
yeah, don't be afraid to just speak in Spanish sometimes, just to really drive that point home.
Exactly. So like, in one of the expansions on this point is you call them things like super predators behind closed doors, but pretend to champion their causes at all their times. So the right says that like, oh, Hillary Clinton is in reality going to put all these people in jail and like try to imprison them and eventually try to kill them off so that the Muslims can have control because they're Satan. I don't know.
This is such a convoluted theory,
right? But it is like this 7 things about you is like the base information module that you should know before stepping into like the far right conspiracy theory realm. You know, this is what they think at a base level about the far left.
Right.
These 7 things, you know, although this 7
No,
things.
we're not even talking about the far left. We're talking about people who support Hillary Clinton. Like, this is just what they think about the general population that supports Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, exactly. But Hillary Clinton would be, I guess, the left, you know, like
whatever they don't like is the far left.
Yeah, exactly. Number 6, you are woefully ignorant of how business and taxes work.
Okay.
So that's check, I guess. I mean,
I guess like most people are, really. I mean,
yeah, like, does anyone really know the tax code? I think that to be a tax lawyer, no, I know for a fact, to be a tax lawyer, you have to like study specific tax codes. Like, you can't be a tax lawyer for everything, you know?
right.
So that's an interesting point. I guess the right people who don't support Donald Trump do know.
Everybody who supports Donald Trump knows the tax code like the back of their hand. Of course. This is well known.
They've read it. Exactly. Number 7, you think the media is unbiased.
Who thinks that? I've actually never heard anybody say that.
But this is a curveball right here. You think the media is unbiased. Oh, it makes sense. You think the media is unbiased, parentheses, except Fox News, and you think academics know everything. So I think academics know whatever they studied on, they got their PhD on, you know. I'm not going to sit there and argue with the PhD about what they know or don't know, you know. So I guess I got to agree with that. I don't think the media is unbiased. I don't think anyone thinks the media is unbiased anymore. And I definitely have never thought Fox News is unbiased, you know. So
almost nothing that comes out of a human's mouth is really unbiased.
Yeah.
So there's always just some degree of bias, and it's just about balancing that bias with enough facts that you're giving whatever context, you're giving like a decently complete picture. And I think that there are media entities that at least give a half-assed effort towards that. Even I've seen good journalism from Fox News before. I'll say that, and I've seen good journalism from MSNBC before. That's not really where I go for my news, any of those places so much, but yeah, no.
Well, what I do is I hop on Twitter. I follow a bunch of different news sources, and I just look through them. You know,
right?
You can't just get all your news from one place. That's called an echo chamber, and that's not good.
We're trying to avoid that.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole premise of our show. So yeah, so I think that in regards to conspiracy theories, this document, when you're thinking about them, conspiracy theories is a good place to start and a good way to like look at the people who believe conspiracy theories and why they believe that. But then it's, I don't know,
because that's the birth. That's like the birth of a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of like sort of people on the right or people on the left, both, that believe crazy things. But maybe they're not that knee deep into the conspiracy theory world, but they kind of enable the more hardcore conspiracy theorists like Alex Jones to exist because they give him, you know, listenership, and they give him, like, they would probably, like, people we know that are in that realm, like Bramron Brash, probably if you ask them if 9/11 was a conspiracy, they'd probably be like, no, I mean, I don't think so. But they believe in sort of these other things that sort of add up to a mindset which is fertile grounds for believing crazy conspiracy bullshit.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about a little bit about
wait, before we move on from
yes,
this, let me ask you this about and I want to make this very, very clear to our viewership. The left also has conspiracy theories in the regards of like patriarchy and oppressor versus oppressed, cultural Marxism, things of that nature. The left does subscribe to that. And just how Tom and I talk about how in modernity things are a lot better than they used to be, I think that it's important for us to note that it would take so substantial proof for any of that, like the patriarchy running everyone's life and institutionalized racism and all these things, especially now, 2016, October 25th, 2016, I think those are conspiracy theories as well. I know it's a controversial thing to say, but yes, a lot of those things do have basis in truth, just like the right has some basis in truth when it comes to their conspiracy theories, but I don't think it's as prevalent as the far left would like us to believe,
Yeah.
like cultural appropriation and stuff
Well,
like
I
that,
think they're both just things that you like can't check, right? Like you can claim that your opponents are all fascists who support Hillary Clinton, and it's like not something that you can check, right? It's just something that you say. So similarly, when you say that all white people are oppressors and systemic, and the people that bolster systemic racism, that's also something that you can say that might have some basis in fact. Like I think if you look statistically at how white people stack up against most other races, you're going to see more favorable outcomes for white people. That's probably a fact, depending on which column you're looking at. Now, does that mean that each individual white person is somehow a race? Like you see the leap there. You see
exactly.
It doesn't, like, you can't just make that jump.
No,
and
that's what you call it, mental
things.
gymnastics.
You can't check these things. You can just say them, and they sound true, and they make you feel good about yourself. And sometimes they are true. Like sometimes there are real problems to address, but mostly what they are is they're just a form of like easily repeatable conspiracy theory, right?
Mm-hmm. Like every white person is a racist. Every white male is a racist, misogynist. I've seen that on YouTube. Cringe document. Like I've followed people on YouTube who believe these sort of things, and I wanted them to know as well. Just the same way I'm talking about the far right, I'm also talking about the left, and I'm talking about this is a worldwide problem. This is the reason why political discourse is in shambles. Because of these things, these leaps that people take. So
yeah, I guess we should draw a line between a conspiracy theory in the vein of Bush did 9/11 and the things that we're talking about. I guess they're used in a similar way, and that they just can't be fact checked. Maybe calling them conspiracy theories is not as useful as just calling them like
what's that?
They're just like ideologies or like concepts, right?
Right.
And I'm not saying
Theories,
that it's not that it's never useful to think about viewing the world through the lens of a patriarchy. Mm-hmm. There are countries like Saudi Arabia, which I think calling it a patriarchy is like actually not very far from the truth. And
well, it is the truth.
And I think that we do have elements of patriarchy in our current society, but I mean in America, but I think to view those through the same lens is crazy. And I think that clearly there are a lot of opportunities, very good opportunities afforded to people here in this great country of America.
This country, 'tis of thee, the national anthem erupts in the back.
This is actually a great time to bring up, not that related to conspiracy theories, but there's recently, the men's rights activists, okay?
Hell yeah.
Oh, man. So
hashtag meninist.
Shout out to Dave Rubin on the Rubin Report. Watch his YouTube channel a lot. He kind of does something similar to what we're doing with a higher budget, in that he interviews people about topics such as the ones we're talking about, and he tries to keep it very objective. He has his own biases, but we won't get into that. But shout out to the Rubin Report. He had a lady, I believe her name, woman. I got in trouble for that. Woman. He had a woman. Not a lady. I got in trouble for saying ladies, because apparently ladies has some baggage with it.
Wait, what do you mean? Where'd you get in trouble for that?
I was on, so I have a friend, and she is a middle-aged black lady. She's a good friend of mine. If you know who you are, I appreciate you. Shout out to you. I'll just say it. Shout out to Yvonne. You're great. I love you. But she had a friend that I somehow got added. I think she added me on Facebook, and she posted something about, I can't remember the context. It was something about calling women something to do with women's issues. I'm sorry, I can't remember, but
yeah, it's okay.
I mentioned that
But she got onto you for saying ladies.
Yeah, I said ladies/men. Like I was talking about ladies and men, like men and women, and I said ladies/men. And this is what it was about. It was about calling women girls. And I was like, yeah, I don't think it's good to call like women girls, especially in like professional settings, but I will say like in a friendly in a friendly setting, like I'll call them like my boys, you know what I mean? And so like if I'm with like, my friends and their girlfriends and like something like that, it might be like, hey, come on, boys and girls or whatever. Like in a friendly setting, it's okay. It was just like casual conversation. And I said ladies/men. Specifically, that's the wording I use, ladies/men, right? And I was like called out on that, like, oh, I wonder why you didn't say men and women. And I was like, what? Like, what do you mean? Because those words are equivalent to me, women and ladies. But then apparently, and maybe this is a thing, but ladies has a little bit more of an air of etiquette, right? Like ladies and gentlemen. You know what I'm saying? And I can kind of see that, but in the end, if that's like really what you're like putting your microscope on and like assuming the worst out of somebody just because they use the word ladies instead of women, like it's ridiculous. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, the men's rights activists. So there's a woman that made a documentary film called The Red Pill. I believe her name is Cassie J. Hopefully I didn't get that wrong. And she did a documentary on men's rights activists. And she was on the Rubin Report talking about it. And she was a feminist before she made this film. And she went into this film trying to document men's rights activists and what they stand for. And she went into it trying to almost like bring them down. And she thought that they would be really like anti-women and this, that, and the other thing. And according to her, I haven't watched the documentary.
She's a journalist, right?
She's a filmmaker. And I think she was.
And she dressed up as a man, and she joined a bowling league, right?
I don't think so, dude.
No,
no.
I've seen a YouTube video of this dude, of this girl who like shaves. She's a journalist or something, like a documentary filmmaker. She shaves her head, like she gets like a pixie cut and like wears like a baggy shirt. And she's a feminist. And she went into this bowling league thinking that like dudes are like they have locker room talk, I guess you would say. But this is before the whole Donald Trump thing came out. She like believed that she would go into this bowling league and everyone would be talking rude about women. And apparently she was so surprised and enamored by like the guy culture, how like they're so inclusive of everybody that's a guy and just like inclusive of everybody. And really they're just like they're not thinking about like repercussions of what they're saying. They're just hanging out, having a good time, and they're really, really nice.
Right.
That was like the whole gist of that little. I guess it was like a news documentary or something like that.
But anyways, have not heard of that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so for the Red Pill, essentially what was going on is she basically found out that a lot of men's rights activists or MRAs or whatever the hell they're called, they're just trying to voice like things that are uneven in society as far as men are concerned, such as one thing that happens sometimes is men will basically have a child and then they'll find out like 18 years later that it actually wasn't theirs, and I forgot what the case was. Maybe it's they pay a bunch of child support, or maybe it's that they take care of the kid for 18 years, and basically there's no source of restitution for men in that case, is apparently the truth. And there's other cases like people are forced to be circumcised, right? When they're born, they have no choice in the matter. They're like men's rights activists are, sometimes just trying to get their voice heard about these things, right? That are not actually unreasonable and that are not just anti-feminist. And I thought that was really interesting, right?
Yeah, that is super interesting. I'm like on the Red Pill movie website right now, and I've seen a lot of these. I was under that assumption as well, like men's right activism. To me, it seemed like, okay, dude, like chill. That's the way I would think about it. But when I looked into it more and more, I'm not saying necessarily I'm a men's right activist or anything. All I'm saying is that men kill themselves more than women do. Men say that they have depression but don't seek help for it more than women do. A lot of these things that when you look at it statistically and with data, it kind of looks like men have it, I don't want to say this, tougher than women, And so I think this is an awesome documentary. I had to check it out.
Yeah.
And it's banned in Australia, and
I don't think it's banned.
Vice.
Is it banned in Australia?
Yeah, there's like a protest going on in Australia right now.
Be careful. I don't think it's banned in Australia. I think it's I think.
Yeah. Why Australian men's right activists had their bullshit documentary banned? Vice Australia. Yeah, it's banned.
Okay, I think that maybe it was just banned at one theater or something.
Oh, Palace. And
yeah, that's such a clickbait title. I saw that too. They just said it's banned. Yeah, it got.
But why does Vice saying that?
Because it's Vice, man. Vice is so weird. Like, sidebar. Like, Vice is, they have like such great content sometimes, but then like they also do like some irritating bullshit as well.
Like BuzzFeed shit.
Yeah, BuzzFeed. I think it's actually kind of goes back to that competition thing. Like, this is just the market that exists and what they have to compete in, and then they have to do ridiculous titles to get people to click on their shit. Again, doesn't excuse it, but kind of puts it in perspective. So in a way, this kind of relates to conspiracy theory thing, because like we all just assume, many of us, there's this narrative, even myself kind of assume that women just automatically have it worse than men. Well, the reality is not so black and white. Like, there are situations that many men face which are different than women, and which present their own challenges and their own even discriminations that women don't have to face. Now, that being said, if I could choose to be born a man or a woman today, and I was trying to avoid the most amount of discrimination as I could, which would I choose? I don't know. Like, maybe I'd choose man, but I think we're at a point in our lives where it's not like that black and white, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we kind of all choose to believe like our own conspiracy. Like, there are theories that are accepted, such as women automatically have it worse than men in all cases, which are just not necessarily true. And in that light, we all kind of believe these conspiracy theories.
Exactly. No, yeah, I agree. And that's essentially the synopsis of our show. Is just research, look into it, believe what you got. Research, look into it, argue with yourself, and don't try to do mental gymnastics to prove your narrative.
Ask yourself, what conspiracy theories do you believe in? Because you probably believe in some that you don't even realize are conspiracy theories.
Just because we're wrapping up, what, if any, which one would you believe? What conspiracy theory would you believe, Tom?
One that is kind of warming up to me is the JFK assassination. I wanted to talk about it a little bit more this episode, but just running out of time. And it just seems super fishy to me. Like, yeah, maybe this crazy guy just shot him, but a lot of the circumstantial evidence seems to point to possibly I don't know if he's the head of the CIA, and I forgot his name, but he is basically like the leader of the assassination wing of the CIA. There's some evidence that he is the one that at least organized the assassination of
Lee Harvey Oswald?
No. Lee Harvey Oswald is the insinuated or alleged killer.
But he didn't do
There's
it.
another guy that was the head of the assassination branch of the CIA, and he had, I believe, previously spoken out against JFK publicly. And who knows? Like, we may never know at this point what happened with JFK. But there's reason to believe he was also. I'm not a historian, but I think JFK was also somewhat sympathetic towards sort of like communist and secret. He was anti-secret societies and things like that. So there's a lot of just weird stuff surrounding that.
Right. I'm gonna hit you.
What is yours, Rahilio? What crazy bullshit do you believe in?
Okay, so you know how I'm like always kind of arguing with myself, and it's like not a good. Sometimes a good quality, sometimes it's not. Yeah. So this weekend, as I was waiting in conspiracy theory waters, I had my galoshes on, and I was thinking about which conspiracy theory I'd warm up next to the fire.
What color are your galoshes?
My galoshes would be like a green. I literally have green, like a dark green galosh. Like it's kind of like an overall.
Okay,
type of thing,
are those your conspiracy galoshes?
Yeah, those are my conspiracy galoshes. But also, I like to think of a conspiracy theory just the same way you said it. You know, like there's like a nice rug there. There's like a warm fire. I warm up next to it.
But then there's really like a goat head above the fireplace.
Yeah, exactly. A goat head and like a pentagram. Anyways, so the one that I was getting into this weekend, I think it's so awesome. It's so hilarious what happened to me, you know, because I'm not very science based, you know, like my brain doesn't work that way. So like kids at school will ask me like, "Hey, Mr. Titty, will you help me like with science or algebra or something?" And I'll be like, "Yeah, for sure." And then they'll open it up and it's like 7th, 8th grade, 6th grade science, and I'm like, "Shit, like I kind of know this, but not really. I have approximate knowledge, like Christianism and shit."
Yeah, Christian. Sure, Davey, I can tell you about Christianism.
And so like I'm trying to hit these kids. Anyways. So this weekend, I found this awesome Facebook page called Flat Earth Revolution. It's got a total of 5,783 followers.
Oh, boy.
And, dude, I swear to God.
That sounds like enough
Tom,
for it to be true.
Yeah, man. And I thought the same. Look, hear my story, dude. Okay. I'm on this website. I'm on this fucking page. And I'm just like the Matrix where he's like, just like looking up all this shit. And I get so far, so deep that at one point I was like, what if this is true? You know? I had to literally snap myself out of reality and be like, yo, listen, if there's not a flat earth, Disney is not Satan. He didn't work with yada 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 to like make the earth flat. Galileo's not a lie. There is dinosaurs. I had to like convince myself of all these things, you know, because like these people are like just as they're talking about the flat earth, they're debunking everything, and they really have no ideology. It's just like flat earth isn't real. They've been lying to us for all our lives, all eternity. It's time to revolt, shit like that, you know. And so at one point, I swear to you, Tom, I'm not gonna lie to you. This is embarrassing. I was like, maybe it's real. Obviously, I was able to pull myself out of that red pill, you know. I swallowed the red pill, and I was able to pull myself out of the Matrix. But
no, that's the dangerous thing. Is it? I don't think it really matters that much, like how smart you are. Supposedly, I'm just using that word loosely, like smart. It doesn't matter how intelligent or accomplished you think you are. Like if you are willing to dive head first into bullshit creek, like you're gonna come out with some shit on you, and like. Yeah. If you spend a lot of time in shit creek, like you're gonna come out covered in shit, and like you might forget that you're not a shit person. You know, exactly. This happens to me too. Like I'll be reading all this anti-Hillary stuff, and I'll be like, "Damn, what if she's the lizard queen?" And you know.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's a great ending tagline for our little show.
What if she's a lizard queen?
No. If you're swimming in shit creek, sometimes you get covered in shit, and you'll think that everything is shit. You know, so sometimes you gotta
get out of shit creek. You gotta climb up Marshmallow Mountain and just chill.
And look around and see that, you know what, it's not that bad. It's fun to learn new things. It's fun to challenge yourself, and we should be having our website up soon. I don't know when.
Yeah, I hope nobody was offended this episode, but if you were offended, please
let us
know why, so that we can address it and that we can put a band-aid on your offendedness.
Yeah, and we don't ever we're human beings, and we admit that we're wrong, and you know, our opinions are just that. They're opinions. We'd like to back them with facts, but sometimes there's not enough facts. There's not enough data. There's not enough stats. So just hit us with your facts. There's not enough time
because we're too busy.
There's not. Yeah, exactly. That's probably the
Thank you so much. We always appreciate people sharing other links. If you have a crazy conspiracy theory or something that you want to share with us, or just a different viewpoint that you think runs counter to ours, please share it with us in the comments or on our Facebook page. Thank you so much. And this is Rogelio and Tomas signing out.
Peace.